And I think it's always good when you have young people organizing to make society better.
I think what the Occupy movement is recognizing is that the market economy is out of step with what we talk about with democracy.
There's a lot of dissatisfaction with our political systems. There's a lot of dissatisfaction with how our economic system is working. There's a lot of dissatisfaction with our treatment of the environment.
Just the inequality in America's society today, the corporate greed, we are the 99%, and it's not fair that 1% of America's population holds most of the wealth.
I feel like the distribution of wealth is pretty much the biggest problem in the world. You know, I think it's just really sad that I think there should be enough resources for everybody.
There was a time that we were all sisters and brothers. The night sky, our ceiling, the earth, our mother, our parents, our leaders, and justice, our guide.
Most people in our organizations would talk about positive peace, which is not only the absence of war, but also the presence of justice.
And so if you can imagine a world like that, you can imagine the difference between what some call negative peace, just the absence of war and violence, and the desirability of something like positive peace, which is a world in which we have not only negative peace, but also the presence of human rights, the presence of a kind of awareness of a relationship to nature and sustainability, and a sense of solidarity and community with one another.
There's been a tradition of philosophy and public life since the time of Plato. And there have been very famous philosophers who were very much public figures. I've looked into some of the work of Camus and Sartre and Bertrand Russell and John Dewey, and they very much saw that the philosopher needs to get out into the public.
How do we take the insights from the philosophical tradition and the tools of conceptual analysis and apply them to trying to think about very, very substantial problems in our world? Problems that diminish human life, that are about the violence that confront many different kinds of communities. How can we as philosophers contribute to finding solutions for these problems?
Because I don't think it matters much for us to sit around and just talk about philosophy and to talk about ideas without actually taking some of those ideas into our own lives and hopefully making change.
The themes that we're really exploring here have to do with immigration as well as environmental policies. Frequently those intersect.
We're really trying to realize the dream of American democracy, which is a dream of inclusion and a dream of equality, and I would hope also one in which we can learn to solve our conflicts nonviolently.
So you now work with Poder. What would you say are the struggles about environmental justice and sustainability today? What are the sorts of issues that you think are important?
One of the big movements of the environmental justice is looking at the whole issue of being exposed to chemicals and toxics and looking at how those impact it, because numerous studies have showed that most industrial plants or industrial waste or industrial recycle is in communities of color. So we need to protect not only the earth, but ourselves against these chemicals. And so in being involved in the environmental justice movement was, how do we get rid of these chemicals that are causing harm, not just to humanity, but to nature? We took on some of the largest corporations in the world in order to make sure that the next generation of kids would have the chance of having a healthy life and making sure that they could reach their educational potential and not be sick or damaged. And we have lost some of the cases, but in a lot of them, we kicked their ass. You know, I have to say that. We took on a giant multi-billion-dollar corporations, and we did it with a $2,000 grant. We looked at environmental racism or environmental justice as the poisoning of Mother Earth.
So that kind of indigenous concept.
Yes, sort of looking at the indigenous concept. When you endanger our Mother Earth, you're in danger, all of us, and you can't separate us because whatever befalls on the earth is going to befall on us.
Human life depends on forces beyond us that create the conditions for our lives. For all of us, our physical being is only possible because of our human grandmothers and mothers, but beyond that, our physical being depends on the environment in which we live.
There was so much use of chemicals, and they are trying to now market it and make money from it. And so it's all about this whole money kind of scheme, but what will it cost us in the long run?
Right.
And not in terms of finances, but in terms of, humanity, life and death. What would that cost be?
It's too easy in our society to get caught up in materialism. We always need something more. We always need the bigger flat screen. We always need this, we need this, we need this. And what we do is that we victimize ourselves.
With both Harrington and Almanza, I think what you see is the kind of leadership for nonviolent social change which applies intelligent analysis and a kind of a knowledge of how to educate and how to transform society in ways that make everybody better off in the long run.
People know somewhat about racism and sexism, but the whole phenomenon of violence in modern society and the way in which we take war for granted has been termed by some in our organization warism. And so for us, you can't really fight against a war unless you also fight against racism and sexism. And almost all in our organization are advocates of nonviolence. And as I put it, silence is violence. If you don't speak out against some of these isms, you are complicitous. But when breaking the silence, you don't want to turn to violence, to try to find nonviolent strategies. And many of the ones in our traditions, whether you're talking about Gandhi or King or Chavez, are advocates of nonviolence in terms of trying to bring about more social justice.
Actually, I'm here holding the flag for each and every one of us around here and around the world. I'm the flag holder, and they said I could go ahead and do that.
How long have you been here?
I've been here since October 8th.
Okay, wow.
I might have missed 3 nights out of the whole time that I've been here, but I flag 4 or 5 in the morning sometimes, nobody be out there. I spend many hours with that flag out there.
There's the new
Oh, you got an Occupy Austin one. That's fabulous.
Thank you. So far, we trying to keep peace and everything around here. Have had a few outsiders get drunk and they get out of hand. But it's nonviolence. Typically.
I think what is really good always in academia and always, I think, with respect to philosophy, is try to bring it into life. So it's not just an abstract intellectual construct, but what do we learn from that? How does that change our life? How does it help us change our society?
These are the things that we're teaching the next generation, is that you've got to go knock on those doors. You've got to take the step to be involved in your community.
We need to have some courage in our lives as well. And if we can't speak the truth, then we're really not living up to our human potential.